Hey, I'm a Mac, and compared to the last video I did a lot of stuff this week, which included a lot of Mythic Plus with some alts as well, some delves, some time walking, and a lot of fun. I'll start off with the gear upgrades because there was quite a few. On my warrior, he didn't actually get anything new. What he did get in his vault was the Eye of Kazan, which worked out because last week I had that as well. I ended up taking the boots that were best in slot. This week there was nothing else better, so I ended up taking that because it is best in slot in raid. So grabbed that, fully upgraded it, and then put it in my bank. I don't like to disenchant trinkets or get rid of them in general, just because in the past, I think I've talked about this, I've always found that trinkets will get buffed and nerfed, and then the trinket that I just got rid of in like a month and a half or two, suddenly that's best in slot again. I have to go refarm it. So I just keep trinkets throughout the entirety of the expansion, and when I do my end of expansion bank cleanup, that's when I get rid of them. So that's just sitting in my bank in case I need it. For some reason, I forgot tier was an option for alts. I really don't know why, because of course on my warrior, I have tier pieces. I've used the catalyst. I just haven't thought to use it for my alts. So while I was moving some alts around, I needed to clean up my warbank because I had a bunch of warbound gear in there. So I jumped onto different alts, grabbed different gear, and then started catalyzing stuff. So for example, on my druid, he got 2 pieces of tier, which I don't play him at all, but he had that to go. On my Disc Priest, I jumped onto him. He got 1 more item level this week. He had 3 vault pieces, all of which were upgrades, so I ended up just eyeballing it, and I took the 639 cloak that replaced the 567 that I had. And then I ended up catalyzing 3 tier pieces, and I'm just one piece away from getting the 4 set, so maybe this week I'll be able to get that from the vault or just through doing stuff. On my Resto Shaman, he got 7 item levels. I only had 2 vault pieces, and only one of those was an upgrade, so I took the 632 neck that replaced the 584 that I had. Same as with my Priest, there were some warbound pieces of gear I was able to get, some of which I did catalyze, and then I upgraded those using Valor Stones and Crests, so he got a little bit more item level from that. And then my Prot Pally had actually the biggest jump this week because he started at 610 and he's ending the week at 626. So from that new Nightfall stuff, there was a bunch of plate warbound gear that I got, and I just threw all of that at this Paladin. So I was able to catalyze 4 pieces and get my 4 set. And then with all this new gear on these alts, I ended up jumping into dungeons on them. On both my Pally and my Shaman, I'm just doing 2s and 0s for now, just to kind of slowly get my feet wet and see how things go. On my Pally, I did 2 Dark Flame Clefts that were +2 keys. The first one disbanded after Candle King because people just had very low DPS and they didn't know mechanics, so that was a little frustrating. The second group had better DPS, but people still didn't really know the mechanics in the second half, but we still timed that one though, so it wasn't that bad. I did a Rookery run with him as well that we timed, where everyone knew how to do stuff, and it was a good group with good DPS, and I just really enjoyed tanking. I like I said last season and in Mop Remix, I like being able to, 1, get into groups fast, but also dictate how fast we go. There's something about being able to continuously chain pull or have big pulls, and just seeing like a warrior, for example, bladestorming, and knowing I'm doing big pulls for you, buddy. So hopefully I get to play a little bit more of the Pally this week. I just need 2 more dungeons for the achievement to do all the dungeons as a tank, so that shouldn't be very hard to get. This guy primarily will actually even just be for Dark Flame mount runs, because just quick groups and being able to rerun it over and over again really quick will ideally be a great way to get that mount sooner than later. On my Shaman, I did a 0 Cinderbrew with a bunch of 640 item level people who were learning the dungeon for the first time, I guess, and it was rough. And I guess a good re-entry to Mythic Plus healing because they just didn't want to do mechanics. They were standing in a lot of stuff, and I felt like I was most of the time, which was a little bit frustrating, but like I said, kind of get the hard one out of the way first. On him as well, I did a +2 Rookery with a similarly geared group, but it was much smoother. People knew what they were doing, and the DPS was great. Before heading into all these, I spent a few minutes on Wowhead figuring out my rotation, so it was a little bit easier than I remembered. Shaman is so much fun still, and I do enjoy healing. I know I keep saying Priest, Shaman, but I really do think I might stick with the Shaman because now that I know the rotation, it's not as much totem management, and it's kind of easier to deal with everything that I'm doing, so I might stick with him this season as well. The one thing I don't think I could ever do with a Shaman is push higher keys, like to 10s and higher, just because even like 0s and 2s are so stressful with people just making my life hell. So I'm probably going to keep him in the 2 to 4 range, maybe use him for Dark Flame Cleft runs as well if I need the mounts, but I don't anticipate going too high up in keys with this guy. Then moving on to my warrior, I ran a couple of Mythic Pluses on stream in addition to delves and some World Quest stuff, which I did that on Wednesday. I'll be back streaming on Twitch and YouTube this week at around 12 o'clock Pacific, so if you want to come out, say hi, check it out, all that, that'd be great. But the dungeons that I ran were 2 floodgates. One was a 10, one was an 11, which that 11 was my second time at 11 of the season. So I was able to get 13 more points and get my rating up to 2639. Throughout the rest of the week, I tried pugging some more Mythic Pluses, and I noticed that I was really not enjoying it. I don't know what the difference is, because when I was pugging up to 10s, that was fine. But this time pugging 11s, I just really felt like I was playing because I had to and not because I wanted to. I noticed that, for example, while I was queuing, I was really looking forward to the end of the dungeon. Like, I just get this one done, and then I'll just go do anything else because I really don't want to do this. And then while I was in the dungeon, I was just dreading it. I just was not having fun. I did not want to be there. I kind of stopped for a second and thought, what am I doing? Because why am I doing this that's not fun? And I think the big thing is just because I'm forcing myself to push to that 3K rating, which it would be nice to get that mount. But I think going through and doing things that I don't find fun and don't really want to do, I think I'm going to take a step back and not push as hard as I have been for that 3K. And one of the things I've also noticed is that I'm kind of focusing all my energy on Mythic Plus on my warrior, and that's making it so that I don't want to do anything else. So for example, like playing the shaman or the paladin, I've noticed that whenever I even think about that, I'm like, no, I can't do that yet because I haven't done my 13s yet. I have to do all those first. And once I'm done all of that, then I can play alts, and then I can do more achievements, and then I can do PvP on my hunter, which I've been wanting to do for like a month. I just feel like I'm focusing on this one thing and it's not really that enjoyable. If it was with a guild group, maybe it would be more fun. I think it would be more fun, but I don't really want to push all that much if it means I have to give up other parts of the game that I do enjoy doing and want to do. And I know whenever I've had this mentality of I need to do this one thing first and then I can actually play the game, I've always found that I burn myself out very quickly. So like I said, I'm going to take a step back and not focus anymore on getting 3K. If I get it, great. If I get bored of playing alts, I can come back on my warrior and do that. Maybe my guild later on this season will be able to help me out with that, but for now, it's just something that I'm not really going to push. And then outside of Mythic Plus, like I said, I did other things such as delves. I was able to get Brand to level 80 this week, which I like that it wasn't as much of a grind as 1 to 60 was, because I think level 59 to 60 for him was like 1.1 million experience, whereas every level from 60 to 70 I think was 250,000, and then from 70 to 80 it was 312,000 per level. So now I could just focus on doing my 3 tier 11 delves each week for Gilded Crest if I need to, if I don't get them from Raid and from Mythic Plus. And then outside of that, I'll just do 4s as that's the minimum for Undercoin to drop, which like I said, I want a lot of stuff from that vendor. So just slowly progressing through that and of course working on the achievements to open up the coffer chests as well as just completing delves in general. With Brand now maxed out, I believe I have all rank 4 curios. So this week maybe I'll try working on Underpin a bit more. I'm really not looking forward to it though, because every time I've tried it so far has been very frustrating. So I feel like this is going to be something that I maybe do a few pulls per day and then just take a break and come back when I'm not as angry, because like I said, the other times I've done it, it was almost immediate anger. And I was like, I need to get out of here because I'm going to like Alt F4 and uninstall WoW altogether. I'm so annoyed. This past week, patch 11.1.5 came out and we got a few new things, starting with the cooldown manager, which I turned on and played with a little bit, but I just didn't really like it all that much, so I ended up turning it off. I don't like how non-customizable it was, and I don't like how it doesn't track everything that I would like it to, and that I can't add or remove stuff. I think it's a nice feature to have, but also on the other hand, why release something that's kind of like a half-baked product? I don't think a lot of people are going to use this for any specific reason, but I just wish it was a little bit more developed. I figure they will over the next few months or years or whatever, but it would have been nice to have a more fleshed out product released on this. In addition to that, we got the Nightfall event, which kind of just seems like Theater Troupe with more combat, or like Researchers Under Fire from Dragonflight. It kind of seems relatively pointless. I guess I can just do it on my alts because there's not really a point in doing it on my warrior, so if I'm gonna get the rep anyway, may as well do it on someone who can use the gear, I guess. And then in terms of the content being split up for 11.1.5 over the next multiple weeks, I do think it's a little bit weird considering overall there's not actually that much content to be doing, so I feel like they could have released everything all at once, but at the same time, I'm not really all that cheesed about it. Like, doesn't really bother me that Horrific Visions are another month out or whatever it is. Actually, that in particular, I could be another infinity away because I don't like those. One of the other things that came out with this patch that I like is the experience buff that we got. I think it's 25 or 30%, which stacks, of course, with the achievement for getting X amount of alts to level 80, and then later on when Darkmoon comes out, we'll stack with that. I jumped on my Enhancement Shaman, who's the only non-level 70 alt that I have, trying to get him to the rest of my alts, so that way everyone's level 70, it's nice and uniform. So I ran, I think, 6 time walkings with him. I'm not really a big fan of Legion, so I didn't really spend a whole lot of time in there. I just kind of did what I needed to do and then went and did something else because, yeah, it's not the most fun for me. While the experience bonus is active, I would like to get at least one character to 80 or at least that shaman to level 70 because I feel like that would be a good use of that time because eventually I would like to get all 40 or whatever of my alts that are level 70 to level 80 because having that alt army is so nice. And then the last thing that I did was I spent maybe a couple hours farming some Noble Garden eggs for the 5 new transmogs that they released. So I needed like 500 eggs, I think, so just spent some time watching wrestling while getting those. So now I have once again everything from that vendor, so if next year they add something new or the year after or whatever, I can just focus on that. I didn't get any new mounts this week, but I think there's a couple that I can get from rep. I just haven't gotten around to it, so maybe next week I'll have an update for that. But I was able to get 205 more achievement points, so I'm ending the week at 45,215. I finally got the Copious Coffers achievement, which is to open 250 bountiful chests in Delves. There's one more to open 500, so when I was mathing it out, I was like, well, it took me 8 months to get this one, so another 8 months to get the next one maybe. Like I said earlier, I was able to get Brand to level 80, happy that that's over. This week, I was able to get the Celestial Family achievement, which is to collect all 4 of the Celestial Tournament pets. It took a little bit, but that's now over, I don't have to go back there, that's completely done. And then the bulk of my points actually came from completing all of the Angler Thread and Seeker Thread achievements from fishing. I've been spamming that Hollowfall Fishing Derby for a while, and I'm just really glad it's over because it's not the most fun and engaging thing. Just glad that that's done because I really did think that one was going to take me multiple years to finish. In other news, I finished watching Kidding this past week, which I thought I talked about already, but I guess I didn't. There's only 2 seasons, 20 episodes. It has Jim Carrey, who plays a kid show host who's going through the loss of his son, and it's kind of like a dark comedy twist on Mr. Rogers. I really enjoyed it. The last episode made me cry so hard. But that's it for me. That's everything that I did last week and all the things that I wanted to talk about. Let me know what's going on in your world. What's going on in game? What are you up to? What are you liking? What are you not liking? What do you think of this new patch? And what's going on outside of the game? What are you up to in life? Are you playing some other games? Anything fun going on? The warm weather is upon us, so maybe there's something exciting going on outside. Everything, I would love to hear about it. Related to the cooldown manager that was released this patch, last year I made a video where I didn't have any add-ons enabled for 1 month and I tried to see how I could get by. It was an interesting experiment that kind of went the way I thought it would, but also didn't. So if you're interested in seeing that, click the video that's on screen now. If you like what I do here, if we're just buddies hanging out, give this video a like. If you're not already subscribed, you should just do it because I'll probably cry if you don't, because I'm a softie, so just do it. Thanks for watching. I love you lots. Have yourself a fantastic week, and I'll talk at you next week. Love ya. Bye.